Hello fellow coffee botherers, in this video we're going to be talking about this, the DeLonghi La Specialista Touch. This would appear to be brand new fierce competition for the Sage or Breville Barista Touch Impress at a much more competitive price point. But is it actually? Keep watching and you'll find out. By the way, this was sent to me by DeLonghi on loan for this review. I would say that if they don't want it back, I'll ask them if they want me to give it away via one of the monthly giveaways, but unfortunately I broke the grinder, as you may notice later on in the video. Shh, don't tell them. Let's start off with the specs. Dimensions: 32 centimeters wide, 36 centimeters deep, 39.5 centimeters tall. Fast heat up time, thermoblock heater, single thermoblock, 3.5-inch full-colour touchscreen interface, 15-bar pump, no mention of an OPV, more on that later, 51mm group and portafilter, both standard and pressurised baskets, conical burr grinder with 15 grind settings, which are broke, 1.7 litre water tank, auto latte art steam wand, dynamic pre-infusion, new advanced tamper for precise dosing and tamping, new dose adjustment tool, hot water spout, adjustable brew temperature, 8 pre-programmed menu drinks, 9 if you count hot milk, cold brew style coffee, as well as espresso, max cup height about 11 centimeters with the included portafilter. First impressions. I think it's quite a cool looking little machine. DeLonghi are very good at making their machines look and feel better than expected for the money. It's really compact, and the small 3.5-inch touchscreen I think is quite a nice design choice. It really doesn't overpower the more traditional stainless steel look that much. Anyone who's already bought into the DeLonghi brand, and especially anyone coming over from a fully auto bean to cup machine from DeLonghi, I think will appreciate the way this looks. What's with the advanced tamper and dose control tool? The La Specialista Prestigio, Maestro and Opera all have a tamp lever, and the marketing blurb, for me, gives the impression that, like the Barista Express Impress and Touch Impress, handles dosing for you. As I've demonstrated on my reviews of the Maestro and the Opera, although there is a tamp lever, there's no dosing sensor or anything like that to make sure you're dosing the right amount of coffee. As soon as I saw this interesting looking tamper, I realised that they've actually found a solution for dosing with the Touch, and it's actually quite clever. The tamper has marks on it, right there. When the mark for OK lines up with the dosing collar, you've got the right dose. If it's lower than that, you grind a bit more. If it's higher, you use a new dose adjustment tool to trim some off. So this is similar to Sage's Puck Impress system, only with this one, your eyes are the dose sensor. This has allowed them to create what would appear to be a competitor to the Touch Impress at just over half the price. And it does work, but I just find it's a little bit clunky and time consuming. You have to get your eyes level with it to see whether the dose is right, and I can never tell if it's quite right. Half the time it appears to be somewhere in between one mark and the next. The instructions say the OK line should be fully visible, but the image they're showing to illustrate that in the manual seems to not show the entire line, which is slightly confusing. What, a third of the line there? A half, if anything?
And then the top left picture, it's different as well.
Yeah, and then the top left picture is different to that, but that's still not showing the full line. So which is it? Leave an answer in the comments, DeLonghi, to help us all out, if you're watching, which you're probably not. The dose correction tool, DeLonghi's new version of the Sage or Breville razor tool, again I think it's clever in theory but slightly fiddly in practice. If you trim with the portafilter upright, the trimmed grinds end up on top of the puck, so it's better to do it on the side, but it's hard to do that without dropping it, as there's no catch that holds it onto the portafilter. Also, it's worth noting that the on-screen guidance for doing all of this is only present if you're in Bean Adapts mode, but once you've done it once, you probably don't need to follow on-screen instructions. Bye-bye. How much is it? At the time of filming, the La Specialista Touch is £699.99 in the UK. I can't find it anywhere else yet, but see the pinned comment and I'll put the price in there as and when I find them. I'll also include links to buy them. These will be affiliate links, so if you buy using these links, you'll be supporting this channel. Very kind of you. Thank you. Speaking of supporting the channel, we now offer memberships for just £1.99 a month. Members receive access to a members-only community area, priority comment replies, early access to videos, and much more. You should see the join button just down here somewhere by my right sandal. Click that if you want to join the fun. Test results. Heat up time is about 20 seconds, nice and fast. Not quite as fast as a 3-second heat up time on the Barista Touch Impress, but in my humble opinion, this doesn't make any difference. Any very fast heating thermocoil or thermoblock machine like this needs flushing to heat, and some of the machines with bulkier, slower thermoblocks might take a bit longer to heat, but will then take less effort to preheat, so it swings and roundabouts, or in Italian, alla tenia giostre. 4 brew temperature options: 90, 92, 94 and 96 degrees Celsius, which is 194, 198, 201 and 205 degrees Fahrenheit. It's worth pointing out that this is a thermostat machine. It doesn't have a PID, the more advanced algorithmic temperature controller, so just because you set it to one of these doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be brewing at that temperature. Milk temperatures from 55 degrees Celsius to 70 degrees Celsius in 5C increments, or from 131 to 158 Fahrenheit in 9 Fahrenheit increments. If you want to go hotter than that, you can steam manually too. Hot water temperature via the hot water spout is in the low to mid 80s in degrees Celsius. When it comes to steam power, steaming 170 ml of milk to 60 degrees Celsius takes about 1 minute and 20 seconds, including roughly 12 seconds of steam heat up time. Almost identical to the Ninja Luxe Cafe and about 20 seconds slower than the Barista Touch Impress. For hot water power, you're looking at about 1 minute and 7 seconds to dispense 200 ml of hot water. The loudness of the vibration pump is about normal for a machine like this, about 45 to 55 decibels. The grinder does sound quite loud to me, but I think it's just the fact that it's a bit of a higher pitch motor sound. Grinding coffee is about 70 decibels, which is about average. What's the grinder like? It's a 40mm conical stainless steel burr grinder. I believe it's the same one found in the other La Specialista machines. There are 15 grind settings, the hopper looks like a 90s trifle bowl, and it's not removable, by the way, without taking the machine apart, which is bad news, and I'll explain why shortly. I broke it. Pump pressure and OPV. It has a standard 15 bar vibration pump, but as far as I'm aware, it's the same as the other La Specialistas, is that it only has the safety valve, not a 9 bar OPV. For classic traditional espresso using freshly roasted beans and standard non-pressurised baskets, we wouldn't usually want any higher than 9 bars of pressure in the basket. So having an overpressure valve that limits the pressure in the basket to 9 bars makes things slightly easier when using freshly roasted beans. This is one of the fundamentals of espresso, and it's one of the things that Sage get right that most of the other brands trying to compete with Sage just don't seem to get. I think any machine that says it's for home barista use with fresh beans that doesn't have either a 9 bar OPV or an adjustable OPV is missing one of the major fundamentals for home espresso. Yes, we can achieve 9 bars in the basket by ensuring the right grind size, but having a valve that limits the pressure in the basket to 9 bars is very handy, especially when you don't have a very fine grind adjustment. What's the pre-infusion like? It features a pump-controlled, low-pressure pre-infusion that they're calling dynamic pre-infusion, which, in theory, automatically adjusts the pre-infusion time using Bean Adapt, which leads us nicely to what's Bean Adapt. While you can just change the grind size, brew temperature and the pre-infusion time to whatever you want them to be, within reason, Bean Adapt mode is supposed to guide you to selecting the best parameters for the beans you're using. You tap the Bean Adapt icon to go into this mode, tell it what beans you're using, 100% Arabica or an Arabica Robusta blend. It's 100% Arabica. Help me!
What happens if you say help me?
The police, ambulance and fire engine will turn up.
So press it.
Check the packaging of your beans to find the information you need. Tell it the roast level and then it tells you what grind size to choose. See, this is where, if you look at that light, that isn't supermarket light, that is light. So I used a light roast and it jammed. It chooses the pre-infusion setting and the temperature setting accordingly. The reason I say supposed to be is that it only appears to change the brew temperature depending on the roast level. It's always given me pre-infusion setting 2 and grind size 7, even when using very different beans. Also, the Bean Adapt feature on DeLonghi's automatic bean-to-cup machines, the Breville and Aletta Explore, for example, allows you to go in and refine things by telling it how your espresso tastes and having it dial in further for you. You can select Refine, but it doesn't ask you how it tastes. So for me, the Bean Adapt feature doesn't appear to be really all that useful on this. It changes the brew temperature, and that seems to be about it. Is it a marketing gimmick? Who knows? Also, the brew temperature it picks, depending on the roast level, I think is in contradiction with the kind of beans that this machine is really compatible with. More on that a bit later. What's the interface like? Overall, I quite like the touchscreen interface. It's nice and simple to use. Changing the settings is really simple. Just click the Bean Adapt icon, and without Bean Adapt turned on, you can simply choose the brew temperature, pre-infusion time and grinding time. If you turn the bean adapt on, it changes these things, again in theory, while you're pulling the shot. But for me and my experience so far, the only thing it's actually changed has been the brew temperature. It doesn't allow you to stop the shot while it's running, which I find irritating, although you can do that if you brew in my mode, and I'll demonstrate this a bit later in the video, so keep watching. It doesn't give you enough time to make a drink, which is something else I find irritating. If you choose your drink and you're not in bean adapt mode and then spend a minute or so faffing around with the dose, as I've ended up doing most of the time, you run out of time and it goes back to the home screen. What's that all about? It's not a huge deal. You can just tap on the drink you were making again and carry on with it. But come on, DeLonghi, you've created this manual dosing system that's a bit on the time-consuming side. At least give us time to do it before the machine gives up and goes back to the home screen. Or are they just not bothered? The My setting is how you reprogram the shot volume on the fly. So My, and then start. Just tell him there, get ready to press stop. There we go. You'll find your custom drink in the drinks carousel. So if you don't like the fact that you'll get about 55 to 60 grams of espresso, quite a big ratio shot, you can brew in My mode to change that, and then just choose My mode in the future to pull shots at that volume. One thing I would say though is that taste your shots before deciding on that. I think a lot of people will read that 1:2 ratio is best and will just go into the My settings and select that, but I've actually had better tasting espressos on this with slightly bigger ratios. What beans are best suited to this machine? Bean Adapt mode suggests that you can use this with a wide range of roasts, from light all the way to dark, but I disagree. The reason for that is that, as I mentioned earlier, you can't remove the hopper. You also can't remove the hopper guard, so you can't get to the burrs, and you can't remove the burrs. Dark roasts release more oils when grinded, so they can clog grinders if you don't regularly clean the burrs, and you can't get to the burrs on this unless you strip the machine down. You could keep the burrs clean by using burr cleaning tablets if you wanted to use darker roasts with this machine. When it comes to light roast, it really depends on what you mean by light roast. If we're talking about mainstream light roast, Starbucks blonde roast for example, then yeah, this is what most small batch roasters I think would class as medium dark. But the Bean Adapt screen appears to be referring to the roast level small batch roasters would call light roast. Also, the brew temperature Bean Adapt selects when you choose light roast, 96 degrees Celsius, would also suggest that DeLonghi are talking about freshly roasted light roasts. Personally, I don't think that's what this machine is suited to. In fact, from my experience, I'd say it's definitely not. A lot of light roasts are very dense, not just because of the roast level, but also because of the growing altitude, the varietals, and the processing method. I tried this out using a light to medium roast high-grown coffee, and this happened. And now, this machine is goosed, unless I strip it all down and take the burrs out. Which means, of course, getting my espresso machine friend Radu to strip it all down and take the burrs out. Thanks in advance, Radu. This sounds like it has a slipper clutch as a Sage or Breville machines have as a failsafe to prevent the gears stripping if something like this happens. But if this happens with Sage machines, you can just take the hopper off, take the top burrs out, hoover the bits, and then hopefully if the clutch did its job, you're good to go. Great engineering, right? With this though, you'd have to strip it down just to do this, which seems rather daft. So I'd avoid denser, higher grown light to medium roast beans. Stick to medium dark roasts, or if you're happy to run grinder cleaning pellets through it every so often, feel free to use darker roasts. Speaking of coffee beans, this is probably a good time to hear from our sponsor. The sponsor this week was supposed to be a well-known brand of pots and pans, but they went off the boil. So the sponsor this week, surprisingly, is me. My coffee beans, seaworks.co.uk, are very freshly roasted, and we have a growing range, currently of 20 coffees, including a number of coffees that are particularly well suited to machines like this, as luck would have it. In fact, we have a whole category of beans suitable for fully integrated grinder machines and fully automatic bean-to-cup coffee machines. In fact, we have a whole category of beans suitable for fully integrated grinder machines and fully auto bean-to-cup machines. To see them, visit seaworks.co.uk/bean-to-cup. And if you're a new customer, use the discount code YT25 for 25% off your first order. If you're not a new customer, use the discount code COFFEEBOTHERERS for 10%, or just set up a subscription to save up to 20%. What's the espresso like? The The espresso potential with this machine I think is okay. If you're planning on using supermarket beans with the pressurised baskets, then it'll probably be fine. If you're going to be using freshly roasted beans, this doesn't quite have the precision or the assistance or guidance that the likes of the Barista Touch Impress and Ninja Luxe have. So getting great results with fresh beans may require a bit more effort.
Slurp.
That's alright. Not the best shot of espresso I've ever tasted, but perfectly acceptable. What's the milk steaming like? It's the same auto latte art steam wand found on the Dedica Maestro, and it's pretty average. I think anyone who likes slightly stiffer foam will probably like it. I've never found this steam wand to deliver what I'd really call micro foam. It's just a bit stiff. It does work well manually though. The thermostat seems a bit off when I'm testing it with a high quality thermometer. I'm finding the actual temperature of the milk is a few degrees Celsius hotter than the machine says it is.
That has completely caramelized, but it does look very nice.
What's the cold brew like? This is cold brew style coffee. I do wish coffee machine brands would come up with a different name for it. It's not cold brew, but anyway, it's a way to produce something similar to cold brew via espresso machines. The coffee ends up at about room temperature with the La Specialista Touch. The same is true with the Oracle Jet. Some machines with this feature produce lukewarm coffee. For example, the Ninja Luxe 601 tends to produce cold brew style coffee at about 40 degrees Celsius, so you do need a fair amount of ice to cool that down, unless you're sticking it in the fridge or freezer for later. Cold brew on the La Specialista Touch is slow compared to the other machines I've used, about 7 to 8 minutes for example, for a similar cup size that the Oracle Jet takes somewhere between 90 seconds to 2 minutes to make, and about 2.5 minutes on the Ninja Luxe. Very bitter, and it's not the coffee's fault. All the cold brew I've done on this has been quite bitter. How does this compare to the Barista Touch Impress? I get the impression that the main goal of the La Specialista Touch is to compete head-on with the Touch Impress, but at just over half the price. This is a clever thing to do. I think the Touch Impress at half the price would sell like hotcakes. They're really not quite the same kind of machines though. The Barista Touch Impress has a PID, a more advanced algorithmic temperature controller, so temperature is more stable and precise. It also has the Barista Guidance, which helps you to find the right grind size for the beans you're using. The La Specialista Touch does have Bean Adapt, but it doesn't give you any assistance with grind size, other than suggesting the starting grind size. After that, it just keeps telling you that you've pulled a perfect shot, even when you clearly haven't. So it's kind of like your mum saying, we've got Barista Guidance at home. The Touch Impress is far more convenient and slick where the dosing and tamping is concerned. It has double the number of grind settings. It allows you to queue up the milk to steam after pulling the shot or vice versa. It also has a removable hopper, removable burrs and additional internal burr adjustment. The milk steaming is a bit slower. The milk temperature isn't quite as precise, and you can't cue the milk to start after pulling the shots or vice versa, which is a very convenient feature on the Touch Impress. The La Specialista Touch is much cheaper, just over half the price of the Touch Impress, but it's really not the same machine. And that saving on cost does come with quite a few catches. How does it compare to the Ninja Luxe Cafe? I don't think this is the obvious comparison, but it's a similar price point, so I do think people will be asking this in the comments. Again, the Ninja Luxe Premier has a PID, not a thermostat, and it has Barista Guidance. While the La Specialista Touch has Bean Adapt and tells you what grind size to start out at, the Ninja Luxe has inbuilt scales and is able to make grind size recommendations from the results of the last shot. So within a couple of shots, the Ninja Luxe gets you really close to being dialed in. If you have a browse through my channel, you'll find a few videos on the Ninja showing all this. As I've said in the past, it's not perfect, but it's perfect enough for most people, and it's really quick and convenient. And again, the Ninja Luxe has a removable hopper and removable burrs. The Ninja Luxe Premier 601 also has a bigger drinks menu, including filter-style coffee, cold-pressed espresso and cold milk foam. The La Specialista Touch has a full-colour touchscreen, of course, so it's fancier looking and offers a more interactive experience from that perspective. But in terms of cup quality, given the barista assistance, I think the Ninja Luxe is easier to get good results with. What do I like about it? As I said, I quite like the way it looks, I appreciate the way they've handled dosing, the interface is nice looking and simple to use, and it heats up fast, and overall I think it's really good value for money. What don't I like about it? The major one is the fact that you can't remove the bean hopper or the burrs without stripping the machine down. All of my other dislikes are fairly trivial, but this is the only deal breaker for me. I just don't understand why you'd make a portafilter machine without access to the burrs. It's a really big head scratcher. The La Specialista Arte and Prestigio both have removable hoppers and burrs. It seems really odd that they decided to move away from this with the Opera and the Touch, especially given the wide range of roast levels that Bean Adapt suggests are compatible on the Touch. I think the advanced tamper for the dosing works, but it's a bit time-consuming and a bit of a pain. Aren't these kind of features supposed to be convenient? And I don't like the fact that it doesn't give you time to finish puck prep before taking you back to the home screen after grinding. So there you go, the DeLonghi La Specialista Touch. In a nutshell, a very clever machine with a nice looking touchscreen and a way to deal with dose volume. It is much cheaper than the Barista Touch Impress, and it is a touchscreen machine with a system for dealing with dosing and tamping and with auto milk frothing. So on the surface, it does seem like a much lower cost alternative to the Touch Impress. But as I've mentioned, they're very different machines. It's not a straight comparison, and there are quite a few catches to keep in mind if you're considering this versus the Touch Impress.
Oh, that's weird.
Good.
So it's like lemon juice, like in a nice way. And then coffee. I don't know if I'd choose it.
No, I feel like we're disappointed with the majority of these.
4 out of 10.
It's 3 beans. 1, 2, 3.
Not the worst.
So that is still espresso lemonade,
Thunderbolt.
aka Thunderbolt. Thank you very much for watching, and a special thank you to all the new channel members.
Thank you.
If you want to join in the fun, click the join button, which is down here somewhere by my right Wellington boot. If you enjoyed this video, drop us a like, it really helps. And if you want more coffee content, click on my face to subscribe. Tatty bye.